the truthfulness of stories that I guard. When I'm writing, I'm guarding the truthfulness of an emotion, of a human experience, of the story itself. So if I'm true to that, I'm fine.
A very warm welcome to a new episode of Ink and Insights. I'm extremely delighted and happy that I have a friend of mine who is an author. She's from Pakistan, Lahore, in our today's program. She is Faiqa Mansab. She holds an MPhil in English Literature and a Master in Fine Arts in Creative Writing from Kingston University in London, and MA in Gender and Cultural Studies from Berwick University, London. She has written and she continues to write in numerous papers, both nationally and internationally. Her debut novel, The House of Clay and Water, was published by Penguin India in 2017, which was longlisted for the Gates Pharma Literary Prize and the German Peace Prize in 2018. The novel was also Amazon Editor's Picks and Amazon Best of International Fiction by Women. It is now available in the Turkish language and has been optioned for screen. It's an immense pleasure for me to welcome Faiqa in my show. Faiqa, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Samit, for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, this is a Nepali podcast, and my listeners would be very delighted to have you. Let me begin by asking Faiqa. You come from a city that has been designated City of Literature by UNESCO in 2019, and there are great writers like Allama Iqbal, Faiz Ahmad Faiz, and in modern time Mohsin Hamid from your wonderful city Lahore. How does it feel to be a part of such a great literary space and legacy?
Sumit, it's you're absolutely right. Grand artistic tradition. In fact, it's definitely inspiring, but it's also daunting to be a Lahori writer. So it's a very complex sort of space to be in, because yes, there is the literary tradition of Punjabi writers, of Urdu writers, and the writers in England. It was mostly, I think, Kashmiri writers or writers from Delhi, Lahore. I think the first writer that I remember is Bapsi Sidhwa, who started writing in English. Tawfiq Rafat was writing poetry in English. Writing, whether it's prose or essays, novels, poetry in Urdu and Punjabi. And though I read and write in all three languages, I think I am most comfortable because of our post-colonial past, which I'm sure our Nepalese, audience would also recognize, and the language of power for so long. Yet we both have that feeling of it being a language which is not ours, and yet owning it because it is something that we have studied in all our lives, and we have been, exposed to British literature, American literature, and all the world literatures, which have been in English for the longest time. So, all the translations that we get to are in English. So I think a very complex space to be in. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it is indeed, Faiqa. I mean, in fact, if you ask me, I mean, the whole of South Asia as a space is extremely complex to kind of navigate through, but it's an interesting space as well. I was wondering, can you please tell us about yourself? When did you start writing? What triggered or motivated you?
Yeah. I was very young when I sort of had this epiphany that I want to be a writer or that I am a writer. I didn't feel like I want to be a writer so much as the recognition that, oh, so I'm like that. And that happened when I was reading. My whole family is full of readers. I mean, my father, though he was a politician, my mother isn't published, but she was reading all the time. So I grew up in a house full of books, in a house with music in the background, and this wasn't just music from movies, but ghazals and Sufi poetry. It was my home life was very different from my school life because mostly the literary languages at home were Punjabi and Urdu. Whereas I was going to school in a missionary school, Convent of Jesus and Mary, Lahore, and the stress was on the English language and English literature, and so for me it wasn't so much a schism, but like a diverse life that I had, and I embraced both. And for me, it wasn't that I had to give up one for the other or privilege one over the other. So I had a very holistic kind of told me that you can't speak in Urdu, or you cannot speak in English or Punjabi or whatever. I mean, although these complexes of our society exist, and I came across them outside of my home, but it was not something that had I loved all languages. I mean, the ones that I was exposed to, I wish I had been exposed to more, then I would have known more languages. I tried learning communities. I couldn't really pursue that. But whatever books I had at home, I would read them all. I read a lot of Urdu literature. I've read a lot of Punjabi literature, mostly Sufi, and I just sort of the age of 11 that this is who I am. I will be writing. One day I will have my books on these shelves. And then I would be, writing little things all the time. Or when you're in school, there used to be called essay writing or, creative writing. And I enjoyed that immensely.
Right. Your first work of fiction, This House of Clay and Water, was published in 2017 by Penguin India, and it was received pretty well. Can you also please share some of the themes of the work?
Yeah, so I started writing this novel. I think around I would just write bits and pieces. Um, it wasn't even clear to me that this would be part of the novel, but Nida was there in my head for the longest time, and anything it was like she was speaking to me, or it was Nida's thoughts that would come to me, and I would write them down. And in 2011, I applied for the MFA, which I got, and I went to and that's I think honestly that was the time during my MFA when I realized that I was most honest about who I am while I'm writing. And it was during those 2 years, because that is why I was there. I was there to find my voice, to write, to have that chunk of time in which to just write. It did a lot of good to me, because before that, it had been something that I did when I could find this was my truest voice when I'm writing. It's also the time when I find most peace. I found just comfort, which I already knew, but in a sort of hazy way. But taking that time out for the MFA really cleared my head. You asked about the themes. It's just I think the things for a woman, especially a South Asian woman. So it's about feminism, it's about religion, it's about patriarchy, and how different kinds of women. So it's a story of two women and a hermaphrodite, Bhangi, who is these are the three protagonists. And then there is the child Zoya, whose childhood is basically a reflection of the childhood of all of these protagonists. It could have been any one of them. So it's about marginalized characters. And I think children are really very marginalized in our societies. We don't give them as much respect as we should.
Right. So, Faiqa, I remember, it was during the early 1990s, I guess, when, Tehmina Durrani's work, My Feudal Lord, kind of shook the Pakistani society. And it's been years now. How have you seen the evolution of the society itself?
Honestly, in a lot of ways, it hasn't changed at all. But in a lot of ways, obviously, things change, people change. Thank God, I think the youth of Pakistan is very, very honest. I see a lot less hypocrisy in the youth than there was in perhaps the generations of the 80s and 90s. I think we were taught, the earlier generations were taught to repress our emotions and just take it. I think the youth of Pakistan fights. I think the youth globally is fighting for what they think is right. And that is a very, very positive change that I see in Pakistan as well. So I think that is definitely something that has changed. And because of that, slowly other things will begin to change as well. So yes, patriarchal structures are still there. They're very powerful, yes. But slowly, I think there is change. Change is always slow, but the fact that it is there is very hopeful. So I am very hopeful.
That's true, Faiqa. Generally, changes are very slow in our part of the world. Can you also share what is your writing process?
The writing process itself is generally a mystery. But I think what you mean is my, routine or how do I write, which is something that I can deconstruct. But the writing process is such a mystery. You'd want to mess with it or to control it, and then I don't know what kind of work I would produce. I'm happy with the kind of work I produce, so I want it to remain a mystery. So, when people ask me what inspires you, everything inspires me. How do I write? I mean, like I just said earlier, the character will speak to me and I will write that. My routine is not very disciplined or controlled. There are times when I write daily, but there are times when I just cannot because there is a certain kind of head. Unless I get there, I don't start writing. What I would prefer, I mean, my ideal sort of in a different city, not in Lahore, in a different environment entirely. I don't have to school and everything, none of those. And I'm out of my routine, out of my daily routine. And then I start my first draft. Once it starts and once I have even an outline, but it's like, 50, 60,000 words, then I can come back to my own routine and, work on it. But for the first draft, I really like to go somewhere else and then write.
And what do you do when you are stuck somewhere during the writing process?
I don't know. I mean, what I do is I'll just read what I've written. I always start from the top, from the very beginning, and I read through. and most of the time I'll get past it. I don't get stuck until and unless there is a huge problem, and then I'll discard the whole thing anyway. So if I'm stuck, that means there's something wrong with the story, with the novel.
Are you writing anything new right now?
So I'm doing research for the next one. It's a fun period because that means that I'm there's no deadline for me, and I just read a lot. My research is mostly reading and staring into the space, just letting my brain work. So it's interesting in the sense that my research is very, very broad because I don't know what I would like to include. So whatever, see, the thing is that life is research. The life that you have lived is what you, how rich or how sparse your life is. That is what will reflect. And that's the kind of work you will produce. So it's not necessarily, for example, I mean, Agatha Christie wrote about these very simple murders, but the characters that she wrote were so deep and so complex and wonderful. I mean, even now when I read those novels, I mean, I'm surprised at how much depth there is in those. Just a murder mystery, a cozy murder mystery, or whatever. But she lived a very rich life. She traveled a lot, and she had a lot of privilege, and that privilege gave her those opportunities, which made into the kind of broad, rich life. So I think it's everything. Your writing will embrace your entire being, and it comes out in certain ways that your readers might understand that, but when you're writing, it's just everything.
Absolutely, agree. Do you consider yourself a feminist writer, Faiqa?
Yeah, it's just something that I am. I'm a Muslim feminist, and so there are a lot of feminisms now. And people used to think there was just white feminism, or then there was black feminism. But feminism has many shades. So I am a Muslim feminist. And there are a lot of things that I believe in that white feminists would not believe in. And for them, it would not be feminist, but it is for me. So feminisms is the new thing. It's not feminism. It's no longer feminism, just like it's no longer English. We have Englishes because, Britain belongs to them. It belongs to one they colonized. And now, we're all writing back to the empire in our own English. Even that time has gone, actually. Nobody's writing back to the empire anymore. It's language that they embraced, 100 years ago. And it's colored in our ways and our mannerisms and our spices and flowers and, flora and fauna. And, so just like that, any is now no longer just that simple white thing. It is not just the white feminism that we talk about. We talk about the different shades of feminisms.
Right. So perhaps my last question to you would be, Faiqa, what does it mean to be a writer in the present context wherein, the whole context is so fluid?
I think it's a very interesting time to be a writer, Sumit, because, I mean, honestly, okay, so, my brain works in these ways that when I'm writing, I'm not concerned with who is going to read my work or if anyone will read my work. But when I edit my work, I do it as a reader and as a critic. And I'm a ruthless critic. So when I'm reading, and if I see that I have written something which is harmful to another group of people, though I did not mean it that way, but it can be construed as such. I am responsible for my words. My words are going to be read, maybe, hopefully, even when I'm gone. So I, as a writer, am responsible to convey the correct meaning. Although meaning is always in flux and it will change 100 years down the line, 50 years down, it will change. But as a person, if I am writing something which is harmful, I don't want that. I don't want that. There are different aspects to it. For example, a character can be evil or harmful, but that is the character. So if a person knows that the difference is there, then you're safe. But sometimes it can slip, and that is where you have to be careful, I feel.
Yeah, I think even the ideas, at the level of the ideas, what may be true at this point of time may not be true in next 50, 100 years. So it's really difficult to sort of comprehend the whole thing, right?
It is tricky. But like I was saying, you have to be responsible for yourself, what you believe in and what you think is right. Uh, for me, stories are very important because I feel that stories were important to me when I was growing up. And I was a lonely child, and stories really helped me find myself, to, grow my mind and improve myself as a human being, as an intellectual person. So all of these things uh, happened because I was a reader. So stories are important. Stories will always be important as long as there are human beings on earth. The code that we think in, we feel by, and that's something that hasn't changed in millennia. So I doubt that it would change now. So with it, even if someone will get offended. I mean, there was a time when Elif Shafak wrote something. One of her characters said something about Armenian people, and she was taken to court. In India, Arundhati Roy wrote something, and she was taken to court. So these are foolish people doing foolish things. That's not what I'm talking about. It's the truthfulness of the story, the integrity of the story. That has to be guarded. That's what I'm worried about. That's what I care about.
Faiqa, thanks a lot. With that note, and getting to know some of the things that's shaping up in Pakistan right now, it was really wonderful talking with you. Thank you so much once again, Faiqa.
Thank you. Bye.